Hello my friend, welcome to this new watercolor tutorial. In this particular tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can use the three technique to make your flat watercolor to something more into depth and the light and more values in your artwork. This is going to be really interesting because many watercolor beginners I have seen that they are stuck with the flatness of the painting and they treat it this medium as like a flat medium. They don't get the various values or the various technique which makes them this particular artwork in a different level. So I hope this particular tutorial will help you to reach to that level where you'll see some more depth and light and many other values into your painting. I've just drawn this side by side and I've already painted this for your reference how basically the beginners are doing today and how you can transform this to this. And I've drawn the same subject here, almost like the drawings are same. So let's go ahead and I'm sure that after watching this entire till the end, you'll have a lot of understanding what I'm just trying to explain here. Hello my friend, before we jump into this tutorial, I'm offering you one of the very interesting watercolor lesson and this is going to be absolutely free for you. This lesson is about how to paint loose watercolor. And the looseness in watercolor painting is it's a very interesting subject to paint on, and you should be knowing how to paint that. There are some of the very interesting technique and there are certain practice which is required, and I'm through this watercolor lesson I'm trying to explain that step by step. This is going to be really interesting for you, and a lot of people who receive this tutorial, so they are just thanking me. They're just saying, Nitin, I'm really enjoying this tutorial, and that really made some changes in their watercolor journey. So I would like you to just check that out. The link I've given in the description, and I'm sure that you'll have really good time with this lesson. Now let's jump into this tutorial. So very first thing I want to talk about here is this: use values, not just a color. This is very important, and this is why the lack of this you will end up with this most of the time, because there's no values. There's a just a flat color been applied here all over the place here, right? And there's no proper values has been given here. Mostly all of those are basically it's a mid-tone. So we need to come out of that, from that mid-tone, the application of the color. So let's work around that. So the very first thing I will be doing here is I'll be using the same color. I don't want to deviate from there. I'll use the same orange. I'll use a little bit of Bunsiana, and I'll apply here this like this. Okay, and I will leave this white, the line, instead of you see this black outline, but that's not the idea. I want to have this white as outline here, and same thing goes here as well. So let me just complete this. So I'll add this here as well. Okay, so I've just added here this color. Now thing is, what value I was talking about here is, if you just have the same color here, it won't look good. You need to have some values here, and that I can bring in just adding a little darker pigments here in the other side. Let's say for this side I'll add a little darker pigment here this side. Not too much, not so hard, just a bit of depth here, and some bit of here, this side as well. So you'll have a very nice blending all of this side. Okay, so now you see, instead of just a plain very flat color, you're actually adding a bit of color here, and that basically adding a lot of values to your artwork. It brings a dimension to your artwork, right? You have also used this white, we have just kept it here. Right now we'll go ahead and we'll work on the wall of this. So I'm using it here again, the wall of this structure, and I'm pretty much leaving some white visible here and there, because that's the pretty much the light basically we get there in the structure, and that brings a lot of richness to your artwork. Okay, now here again I'm just adding some values here, putting some depth, some more darker pigments here. Okay, let's see this how basically it came out. Compare this to, we did this pretty much the same thing. Now we'll work on the further one. We'll use the same orange color for the roof. Okay, we have some roof here, we have some roof here. I'll add a little more color here for this roof. And I'll add a little bit of burnt sienna into this, all of this. So that brings a very interesting flavor into our painting. It's not just about the orange. You just see whenever you are looking at the reference image, or if you're following, and you can just see what all the values are there which you can bring in into your artwork. Now same thing goes here as well, something here. There's a lot of terracotta structure in this particular scenery. Think Sir Rome, not wrong. Okay, so I've just given here. Now you see, look at here how you have we have I mean, normally we see like how bigness just apply the plain color here, but what we did here is we just played around. We just taken some bit of though we are working on a first layer, but we are just trying to get the flavor on it, just trying to do something here and there to get its real pleasure of its terracotta, the roof, right? And this is something like, it's amazing. Okay, so we also want to have a depth, more depth here into this painting. So far away these buildings are pretty much, these terracotta, these roofs are pretty far, and we are just adding very lighter pigment here with the help of the lighter pigment of ultramarine blue and all that. Okay, so that actually adds a lot of depth here. Now let's come back to this place. We are basically adding exactly the same thing what we did here, but we are not making a very plain, just like adding, we just painting this entire wall in a one color. We're just trying to get that some shades here, something like this house shades comes here, then the shades comes falling, it falls in this section. We're still doing the first layer. Okay, now this is all is required, and we are just pretty much doing it, covering all that thing, make it more like a real feel to it. Okay, now see how can you just compare. So let's imagine that you have applied, you painted, you have started painting in any of the subject, and when you paint something like this, and you apply the one single color, and there is no any proper values, one single color just applied it here, that doesn't make it makes very flat, and your artwork will look really really boring. So let's avoid that. Okay, now this is the very first the idea I had. Now the second technique I would suggest you is this layer with glazing. This is very important, in especially in a watercolor. The glazing is super important layers in terms of getting this glazing and getting your artwork more like a very vibrant, and more about the transparency. So the transparency of your artwork is happen only through the proper glazing technique, and that you need to develop. What you see here is, can you see any of the area where you see this the vibrancy of the transparent effect? Watercolor is known for its transparent effect, its glazing, the beauty of glazing, and that is something is missing here. So how we can bring it here, I'm going to show you, and you need to develop this. So you need to work as a layer. So what you see here, consider this as a first layer. You just applied it here all over the place. We have just done this as a first layer. We got some great values here. Now it's time to make some more uh, layers. We can call it second layer. Now for doing this, all I'm just doing here is I'm just thinking, okay, what are the places we can just add more value, right? So I'm adding this two color because I need somewhere we need a little more darker pigments here. So I'm adding ultramarine blue and burnt sienna together, and I'm just trying to get the values of the depthness wherever it is required. So we need some darker pigments here in this section. Some bit of things here. Right, so this is the moment we are applying this particular technique into our artwork, it start looking very shiny. That will start reflecting its beauty. Right, now let's work on this window. So I'm just applying. Now you see, imagine that you have done this. You have taken the color and applied it here, very flat. It doesn't add any values to your artwork. You need to have some variation into your artwork. So this is how basically we can just do it. Adding some values here with a proper amount of light and depth. And it also brings the very good amount of the richness in your artwork. Now see, I've just applied a bit of layer here somewhere, and that brings, now you look at here also, these are the things mix, pops out your artwork, start looking at it, start showing its beauty. Now we have these all the windows, some other values, and everything we are doing it here is with the proper help of these values of the same color here, a little darker than this, and just adding up some bit of fun element into this, and it starts reflecting its the core value. Now the far away this building has these windows. Here again we need to have some more windows here. We are doing exactly the same thing what we have seen here. We are not doing anything extra. The only thing what we are just trying to achieve here is having a proper amount of glazing, the proper amount of depth. Okay, now I see the moment I'm just trying to apply the color here, ultramarine blue, because we need to have some values, some interesting values here. So we are just getting all of these using these. Okay, we're just applying a very subtle, very little strokes here and there, and things are actually start reflecting its beauty. Can you see that? And the moment we learn this particular technique, if you just develop this, you see a tremendous, you'll enjoy like a watercolor. You'll never forget about watercolor. You will be always like, you'll leave everything. You'll start saying, no, watercolor is that. I love it. And because the reason I'm just telling you, because a lot of people, they just left watercolor because they believe, they just convince themselves that, okay, watercolor is not for me, I can't paint. And that is very disappointing. As an artist, as a being a big fan of watercolor, if people are saying that, no, I can't paint watercolor because watercolor is very unforgiving, I can't manage those things, I'm pretty much very disheartened. I mean, this is a very disheartening statement whenever I hear this kind of a statement from people. Okay, now see, other values I'm just trying to bring in here that gives a more contrast. I'm just adding a little bit of red here, and that brings a lot more contrast in our painting, and this is how basically the glazing happens here. Now I see this beauty of this, and I'm not doing anything, something very complicated stuff. It's just simple, very simple way of applying the glazing layers, the third layer, whatever you call it. Okay, it's just that. I'm just trying to apply a more depth into this. Okay, and this is all. You can have some interesting texture, or this kind of texture blending, the color blends, and etc. This is super amazing to work on. Okay, So you see here how the depth is actually developing here. Things are getting more darker here, and then it shows the focal point, and then it goes all the way the places which is in far distance. These are the object, these are probably the buildings which is in very far away, from this area. And that is something very interesting to uh, you know very interesting to see and paint, because that's the area where you need to develop. This is the area where you need to develop, and this is how basically we develop it. What I'm just doing it right now for you. Okay, so a lot of things, maybe the windows here, windows, because there's a lot of interesting values which you can have, like some this kind of shades which falls here, because these are the these are the things are very near to your eyes, etc. Right? So this is what is your second technique I was talking about. And this is the last but not the least. This is control edges. This particular technique is way more important in your watercolor, any painting you are making it. Now, what I mean by controlling edges is, you look at here these edges, right? These edges is everywhere with the same values, with the same intensity, with the same color, and everything is basically, it's a cutout. It looks like a cutout, right? But when you apply these edges in places like a hard distance, if you apply these edges, it won't look good. So what I mean here is, you need to develop edges to give a focal point. Mostly what you want your audience to look at. If you look at here, you see everything here, but when I see here, I see this particular dome, okay, and surrounded areas, probably this area where I just wanted to give a more focal point. It's a more focal area to, I want my audience, the moment they'll start looking at this, they should be able to see this and they say, oh, okay, I'm just looking at this dome. That's the idea. So the whole idea here is to make people to look, help them to look at the area where you want, and that happens only when you give a proper amount of edges. What you see here is, I've already given here these hard edges everywhere, right? Here, these hard edges, like in this example you see here, this one, these are the hard edges, okay? And because of this is so prominent, okay? Anything which is near to your eyes, like this example, this is probably your near to eyes, you can make this, but I just wanted to diffuse it. I just there's another area where you, even though it is your near to your eye, but you wanted to give a, just think about how the lens works in the camera, okay? You wanted to give a more focal area. These rest of the things are actually getting blurred, and this is what you need to develop it. Any painting you make, you should have these focal pointer, the focal area, where the people can just immediately go and see it, okay, what exactly it is. They'll get an instant idea what I'm just seeing it, okay? So that's the reason you see here the hard edges. But when you look at these things, these are the, so don't ignore this. This is so important. These are the tiny little lighter colors. But thing is, if I'll make these things so hard color, it won't look good. There you'll not get a proper perspective and the depth into your artwork. And another way you can just do it to make it a lighter, I mean the more like a wet on weight kind of a things, which is far distance and all. I'll make a new video for that, to how you can just work on that. But for now, this is what I wanted to say, the hard edges. And these edges are is your part of your focal point, and you can just do it what I have just done it here in our second layer itself when we did this glazing. Okay, but for your better understanding, I'll just make on a very quick one example here for you to understand. Now see, this is completely, it's a flat right here. Now I want to make this edge. Now I'll just take this very carefully, and this is something, this particular area, this roof, I want to make it more like a focal point, and more like a, now the moment I've just given this depth here, little darker pigment, okay, you see here these, I'll just take this ultramarine blue and mixing with Sienna, ultramarine blue. So the moment I've just given here, and I see this hard edge came, right? The edge here, this area, and the edge you see here, this hard edge, that came into existence. And that's the beauty. That's the beauty of having such kind of edges in your artwork. Now, if I'll just make it a little more, some work here and there, on this example, if I'll make this, suppose this is the another roof at this moment, and this is the, let's say, imagine that this is the roof, and you got this particular roof and things like that. Now you see this edge, right? And I see this edge. I was talking about this. Okay, this is absolutely this is the best way you can make this hard edges wherever it is. But you need to be very careful. It shouldn't be all the places the same values. It shouldn't be all the places. It shouldn't be too much of hard edges. If you'll have too much of hard edges, it will be some, you'll be end up with doing something like this, a little better than this, but definitely you'll have a little very uncomfortable situation when you'll have giving a hard edges everywhere. So just be a little mindful about that. So yes, this is the three areas I wanted to talk about this particular technique, which will take your watercolor learning to a different level. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you did, I'm inviting you to join my watercolor art community. This community where you want to be, because you will be meeting a similar mindset of people and the same values and the same vision what you have. And you will also have a very structured watercolor learning week by week. And it's not just about the watercolor, it's more about making a connection, making a real connection with a similar mindset of people. And I'm seeing a lot of people, they are improving, they are going from one level to another level, and this is how their progress is happening in this platform. So I'm inviting you to join this global watercolor art community, and I'm sure you're going to like it. And I'll see you next video very soon. You can watch this particular video for you, and if you wanted to be part of this Patreon watercolor art community, you can join this community clicking on this. Thank you so much, and have a great day.